Welcome to this week's episode of Lifts. It's summer holidays over here for children. I've got two kids, one that's a teenager, one that's about to be a teenager. And we spoke last week about me getting training for my vacation, but I think I need to actually increase my stamina just to be able to keep up with my kids being at home, because that's a different level than having a job.
Well, and Matthew, you have two, and I have three, right? I've always said that parents that have one, and having one kid is hard work too. But the game really starts when you have two. It's like a marathon, right? The marathon starts at mile 22. Real life, I think, starts with kids, where you have to block and tackle and negotiate a lot of things when you have two. And I have three, and of course my son's 14, so he's almost like another helper around. But yeah, how is your training going?
Yeah, it's going well. It's going very well. It's just balancing everything now at this time of year. So, Brandon? Do you have children?
I do have two, but what Mo just said, I think three is the game changer. I mean, like two you can manage, but three, someone's always left behind. I've heard, but I've always heard three is the game changer. Yeah, I got two boys, 11 and 8, and they're very much boys and very much into sports. So my evenings and weekends, I'm at a slow jog is the way I'd like to describe it, chasing them all over the place.
Well, kids are a wonderful thing. And Brent, I think what helps is I've had two kind of lives. I have an ex-wife and I have a current wife. And my 14-year-old is my ex-wife, so I don't have him full time. And then I've got two beautiful girls who, Matthew, you still have to meet. I've shown you pictures, but you have yet to meet. That's 5 and a year and a half. But children of any kind, I think, are wonderful. They're a lot of work, but so fulfilling. And speaking of fitness, I want to introduce our guest for this week's episode of Lift, Brandon Cullen. I have a short bio here about Brandon. In search of life's imperfect soundtrack, Brandon Cullen brings an edgy approach to entrepreneurship through the valuable experience he's earned as a professional athlete turned business owner. I did not know about the pro athlete, Brandon. I want to touch on that here in a minute. Brandon hosts an entrepreneurial inspired podcast called Playing Guilty, and as how we've all known him, to be the co-founder and chief concept officer of MADabolic, the industry's first and only strength-driven interval training franchise. Matthew, maybe you should have been doing some MADabolic to get in shape. So Brandon, thank you so much for coming on. I did not know you were a professional athlete, so maybe we can kick off learning a bit more about your past life.
Yeah, I don't know if I was very good at it, but that's how I got to the United States. I grew up in Canada. I chased that very common Canadian childhood dream to play in the National Hockey League and never quite got there. So I spent the majority of my career in the minor leagues, so between the AHL and ECHL. And fitness was kind of the equalizer for me. It was that one variable that I could control in the off season. And if I always believed if I approached it the right way, it gave me at least an opportunity to compete at that high level. So I always took it very, very serious at a young age. And I started training people in my early 20s because players that I would compete with or against that were in my hometown that started asking to follow my training program or write programs for them. So I kind of fell into this industry in a weird way, working with collegiate and professional athletes. And then once my career was over, I found just more opportunity making a way back to the general public versus being so specialized.
Well, I think that's a good segue into the first story, because I was totally the opposite. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't very athletic when I was a kid, and I found this first story that we want to chat about today, which is Diplo's running. Diplo, for those of you who don't know, is an awesome DJ. He's kind of like, yeah, I kind of must admit I have a bit of a crush on this guy, or his lifestyle. He's got an amazing studio out in Jamaica, which we've actually got some escape equipment in through a mutual friend, George Form, because Diplo trains at his gym in Calabasas, and he's created. He sort of says on his website, "Running never sounded so good." So essentially, it's a 5K with a party, and for me, to get me involved in fit, always love doing a little bit of fitness, but I always love a great party. So this, I think, is an interesting story, because you've got people from outside the fitness industry, from the entertainment industry, creating a very, very different spin. So I was wondering if you've seen this one, Brandon, and just to get your thoughts on it.
No, I haven't seen it, but a huge topic today, right, is trying to figure out how to get that other 70% that aren't active into the fitness space. So I'm a big believer in kind of taking a niche for the type of business I like to be in, but I'm also empathetic to that other missing element that there could be a lot of opportunity there. Sure, it requires changing mindsets, but if people can get creative, even like, and I'm not sure if we'll get into this topic, but a lot of the negative stuff around GLP-1s, if it gets people going, I'm okay with that. And that's kind of where I stand with these creative outlets to reach that other 70%. So I think it's great.
I also think that artists are looking for other ways to engage people. Right. So you look at Apple Music sponsoring the Super Bowl halftime show, something that never would have happened if Steve Jobs still ran it. It was, of course, a different time with media and entertainment. Diplo, a lot of people know Diplo, but how can he engage a community, get more people to listen to it, listen to his music? I think fitness is a great outlet. And ever since the pandemic and looking at post-pandemic consumer behavior, couple of things come to mind. One, people aren't going back to the office as much as cities and big companies want you to. If people had a choice, they prefer to say, look, we've really evolved with technology. We embrace technology. We know how to use it better. We want to work from home. We want to work remotely and contribute and give and lease our brain power that way. So you missed an interaction there. So how can people find community? If they're not going to the office to meet people, how does it happen? Well, guess what? It's happened at gyms. It's happened at gyms like yours, Brandon. It's happened at your gym down the street. It's happened at fun events. And what a great way to bring a very well-known artist. He might now get people to come out to this event who might not otherwise have joined a 5K. And I think we need to see more of this. And this maybe could even be part of a tour. Now, you've seen music runs. And in fact, there was a series that we worked on called Music Run several years ago based out of Kuala Lumpur. And then I think went to Singapore and some other cities. You've seen the Foam Fest here. You've seen the bubble. You've seen these things come and go. But I feel like this is different. Look, like you, Matthew, I love Diplo. In fact, there's a music festival happening here in the Hamptons in 2 weeks that I'm going to called the Palm Tree Music Festival. If you weren't traveling on vacation, I'd say come check it out because they have, I think, Sophie Tucker, Swedish House Mafia,
Oh, wow.
Kygo, and a few. It is so. I'm going to send you videos. It's going to be so much fun. But back to the
Maybe I
agenda. Back to the
divert on the
agenda.
way to my vacation.
That would be awesome. Yes, I'll get you a ticket.
But don't you think, like last week we were chatting about the wallet, the share of wallet, the wellness wallet. Don't you also think that, I suppose, if you're into a healthy lifestyle, you know, most people I know that are into a healthy lifestyle, like you just mentioned here, like to go to concerts, like to go to bars and different things. And, you know, do you see this sort of new thing emerging where there's the equivalent of that, particularly for some of the young people that I understand don't really drink alcohol anymore, like probably my generation did? You know, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a weird time. I got to be honest. I'm not saying not drinking alcohol is not a great thing.
Well, Brandon,
not
you're Canadian. You grew up with like a Muslim.
Yeah. You know what? Outside of fitness, I do have a passion for how our kids are growing up. I'm not a huge fan of where it's going. I'm not saying go drink alcohol, but like get out, meet people. And if these are the things that get people out from behind the screens and get them engaging in social environments, one of the biggest things that I fear is, you know, we're getting close to living like the Jetsons. So it's a tough thing. Like, is this something that creates that third space? Not to use, you know, a boring term that might be overused at this point, but yeah, I mean, there's some sweeping changes. I was talking to my co-founder the other day, and it took him a long time to convince his son to get his license. I hear that as this common thing amongst kids, and I don't want the kids to run as quick as I did back in my 20s, but I would like to see them out socializing a lot more than what I'm seeing today. And hopefully maybe these are creative ways to get people out of the house. And if we're working from home more, I don't really think digital fitness has taken off the way we thought it might in the pandemic. So people are back in gyms, but just in general, right? We're indoors more, we're moving less, we have less social connections. And to me, I love people. I love coming to the office. So seeing this new shift is odd for me, but hopefully these kind of creative outlets, especially backed by these huge artists, maybe that can drive some social connection.
What do you want? One of the next story, I'm going to sort of jump on one, Mo, or jump a story if that's okay. But you mentioned kids getting out more, and I have exactly the same conversation almost like multiple times a day with my children, and it's a challenge, and it's something that I think you got to keep a really close eye on. But one of the stories that we saw was a company called Kabata. They've raised 5 million for AI powered dumbbell. Now, I'm not ever been in one of your facilities, but where do you stand on as an operator? Are you do things AI powered dumbbells where you can track what your people are doing within your facility and provide different data points is something that you see will become part or important as your business going forward? Or you very much, no, this is, an analog experience. We're going to interact, we're going to focus, put our phones down and not leave some of that stuff outside of the door.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You described us. We're almost a digital escape at this point. I see that it's going to be valuable for some people, what you just positioned there. As far as our MADabolic consumer, we find that they're a little bit more of a high performing individual that is grinding all day. And it's almost like when they get in our doors, it's their hour escape. So yeah, we don't let phones on the training floor during class, and we lock the doors once class starts. Like, people do not come in late. So AI is going nowhere. And this is going to be part of some version of the fitness industry in the future. I don't think it's going to be for our product. The way we're trying to use technology is to better the client experience. So maybe the lead nurturing process on the way in, even just communication and just making it easier to get into our gym in a more friendly, welcoming manner. But I don't see us we don't have any digital screens on the board. I mean, we're pretty bare bones, come here to work and then go enjoy life once it's finished. But it's weird. I don't know where it's going, but I know it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think AI is really frothy right now, and we see so many brands. And look, I'm a technologist. I've been doing this thing for 12 years, and we've seen a lot of companies just implement AI and kind of almost find a problem for the technology instead of having technology solve a problem. And I always go back to one of the examples. One of our longest serving brands that we work with is SoulCycle, and I would say SoulCycle is a heavy tech company. You wouldn't know it when you walk in, because you walk in, your phones are away. In fact, they don't want your phone in the room. And just like you, if you're, I think it's 3 minutes late to class, the doors are locked and you can't come in. Yet technology is being used in so many ways at SoulCycle that you wouldn't even know it. It becomes frictionless. And that's the right way to think about the experience. And to your point, Brandon, so many people, because they're not in an office, because they're stuck in the home seated like we are all right now, that gym is that escape from digital. It's almost a way to detox it. But if you are going to use technology, it has to be thoughtful and really help enhance the thing. Use the term user experience. Might use the term enhance the product journey, whatever that might be, instead of trying to force it in. But when it comes to Kabata raising 5 million here for smart dumbbells, again, I'm curious to know who put in the 5 million. I'm curious to know, why are they getting involved? I mean, dumbbells work. It's a product that works. Matthew sells a great pair of dumbbells. I've got dumbbells, in my basement gym here. You have dumbbells in your product that you use. Is AI going to help me move the dumbbell better? No, right? And sometimes you need a coach to do that. So I agree. I think we're trying to force technology and try to find a problem for it rather than solving a problem with technology. But I am a fan of AI. I do think that there are many applicable solutions for within our industry, but whether this is the right application or not, I certainly don't think so, but maybe I'll be proved wrong.
It's definitely we talked about it a number of weeks back with a few of the DJs in Ibiza that have these no phone policies, and there was another one. I'm not sure whether it's actually Swedish House, Matthew. Now you mention it, but there was somebody that actually went out to their community and said, "Look, we're thinking about doing this. We're holding a certain night at a particular club, and we're also thinking about joining that." And it'll be interesting to see what happens, because there's early seeds of this movement away from it, and because some of them can't remember the set that they do, but one of these groups just creates this amazing AI visual experience around the whole concept, which is just absolutely phenomenal. And when they take the pictures of it, you've got hundreds or thousands of people filming it. You can't help thinking that just they're totally missing the moment and the experience because they're sharing it and posting it.
I went and saw Jack White play in Pittsburgh probably 3 years ago, And this was the first time I ever saw it. When we walked in, they gave you a bag and they sealed this bag with your phone and it fit in your pocket, but you were not able, the way that they sealed it, you couldn't open it without the key
Oh
on your
wow.
way out. And you know, it was weird. It was awkward because even I would wanted to take a picture of Jack White, who I love. I mean, so this guy plays nearly a 4-hour set spanning from the White Stripes to Jack White to all of his bands. And I can tell you by the end of it, I got it. Like I wanted a few pictures and maybe a few videos to show for friends. I don't know why I fucking wanted them, but you know what I mean? And but when I left, they unsealed the bag and what an experience, what a night. So and apologize for swearing there. I can do that from time to time.
The wait is over. Our new Escape Fitness catalog has landed. This is the essential guide to all of the latest product innovations that are shaping the future of functional training. Bigger and better than ever, this year's catalog is 190 pages, jam-packed with everything from eye-catching, bespoke functional training frames to some of the latest strength training equipment. So sign up today to receive the digital version today. So what are you waiting for? Go to escapefitness.com now.
Yeah,
It's okay. You would not be the first one.
Well, we'll move on to the next one. We seem to, GLP-1 seems to be on every single podcast. So apologies that it's overdone, but it certainly is in the news media very often. But one of the things that this particular story was a company called Elo Smart Nutrition, and this GLP-1 muscle retention protein formula, which helps retain muscle and alleviate the side effects of GLP treatment. Curious to know, like, Brandon, from your perspective, how much of a part does, like, you're clearly not targeting the obese is my guess, but how much part does nutrition play in terms of what you're offering to your clients, and do you get people that are even sort of likely to be in a better shape, thinking about GLP-1s, like where you've got some of the celebrities that are actually already in fairly good shape and they're taking these GLP-1s just to further enhance where they are at the moment? And I don't want to sort of get you to say anything that any of the people that come to your gyms may be, anything that could be negative from that perspective. But if you're able to comment on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's definitely not who we're dealing with. I think that advertisement was hilarious, that it's just branding around a regular protein, but hey, it'll probably work. I mean, my stance on GLP-1s is I know all the negative side effects, and I think it needs to be for a specific population to get them a head start. If nothing's worked for them and this can get them, you kind of have to look at the lesser of the two evils for that individual, and then that doctor can make a recommendation to do it. What worries me, I think it's going to take off in a bad way. Obviously, people look up to those people on the red carpets that probably don't need to be taking these things. So I want to keep that away from the. I mean, I'm not going to do it, but I'd like that to stay away from the mainstream where people think this is the last step to take. Like you mentioned, Matthew. I mean, they're already doing fine. I really think it's that overly deconditioned population that maybe doesn't have the education and they just need a head start. The one thing that I just kind of disagree with, and a lot of people are making some claims that by taking this drug, it's just going to all of a sudden catapult people into gyms. And you guys know, like, it requires discipline, it requires patience, it requires time, commitment to start moving weight. And if you've never done it before, having someone teach you. And all of all of these are costs. So I think GLP-1s are going to be a huge disruptor in the industry. I just don't think it's going to do what people are predicting today, that it's going to drive people into a gym like mine. I think it is on the medical side of things, and it should be kept on the medical side of things. And I think there should be some very specific prescriptions to get these people just very lightly moving in the right direction. But a lot of that is still going to be on them to get to that appointment, to make that drive, to work. And I think that's where the disconnect is. These claims that taking a pill is going to excite someone to work out, I don't buy that.
Yeah, look, we've seen, just like AI we spoke about in the last segment is frothy. GLP-1 is also very frothy. In fact, the highest valued company in Europe is a GLP-1 provider. Novo Nordisk, in fact, took over LVMH. The second most valuable company now in the US is Nvidia, who took over Apple, which sounds kind of crazy. So both of these segments are very fraught, and these market caps are reflective of that. And you're seeing brands come in, and to your point, I know Elo Health, and I'm not as close with Ari, but I've followed him, and I think he's doing some good things. I agree. This is just a label, right? There's the Elo Smart Nutrition. I haven't taken their protein, but I'm sure has a high quality protein product. There's nothing wrong with it, but they slap a label on top of it. In fact, big brands like Abbott Health also have done the same thing. They have a GLP-1 quote unquote protein. It's just a reform. It's the same formula, rebranded version of an existing high quality product. But because it says GLP-1 on it, and you've got these people who, to your point, Brandon, aren't educated, not educated from an education perspective, not educated in health and wellness, that are now getting on GLP-1, and they're saying, okay, now that I'm on the thing, it's almost like if you're going to sign up for a 5K or you're going to go on vacation, I'm going to beach vacation. What do I need? Well, I need to get a swimsuit. I have to get sunscreen, all these things. Same thing with GLP-1. I'm getting on GLP-1. Okay, what are the things I need to get on it? But I do think that the opportunity I see for our industry is that 40% of the weight you lose on GLP-1 is lean muscle, which as you know, changes your BMR. The other part of it is that you cannot be on this thing forever. In fact, I've spoken to some people who are on GLP-1. I said, "Oh, fantastic." And then I've seen the change in them. It's been transformative. Well, what's next? Like, there's no plan. Okay, well, how long are you going to be on it? And one person said, I've got great insurance. They're just going to keep on covering me. I'm like, even if they do cover you, which I don't think is going to be true, what is your exit plan? You need an off ramp. You cannot be on this thing forever. We don't see enough about that. I mean, how many conversations, Brandon or Matthew, have you had about I'm on GLP-1. I'm going to be on it for 3 months, and I'm going to do these lifestyle changes. I'm going to join a program. I'm going to do the right behavioral changes, the right diet changes, so I can keep the weight off. We need to be talking more about that. I think that is the role our industry can play. I don't think it's this magic pill that we're going to now get, go from 20% to 40% gym penetration because of GLP-1. I don't see that happening. But I do think that because the health industry today is not really helping them with the off ramp. I think the off ramp is going to be when the insurance companies stop supporting them. I think what's going to happen then is they're going to look for the next solution, which is compound GLP-1s, which is like $200 to $300 a month. Again, we don't know the long-term effects. To me, we can play a role there, right? So we could help you embrace a lifestyle. Now that you've lost, 30, 40 pounds, come into MADabolic, come into my product and join the community and see the things that we do to not only, to keep the weight off, but to maintain a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, and the only challenge I would give there is like this is a bad example. It's like when you say you were to put a smoothie bar in your lobby. And it sounds like a great idea, but it ends up being a completely secondary business. I think this population needs a company that's specialized for them. I think some of the big players like the Equinox and Lifetime, they'll figure out how to do this because of how well funded they are, and they just seem to be doing the right things. But you know what I mean? To like, this is such a different population to just say, oh, and by the way, this class will work for you, versus saying, to use your word, Mo, off ramp, like to have an off ramp program for these people to go to an exact place that is tailored to keep them moving. I think that's a business opportunity, but blending it in with a successful or defined business model, that I think that could be tough.
Well, that probably leads us into the next story about Superpower. Company called Superpower raises 4 million pre-seed to launch preventative healthcare platform. And it seems that, the conversation seems to say, look, that there's definitely a need for more education. We regularly get to talk around about this on the podcast, people that are experts really in the field. But even for those people, there's a lot to get your head around, and things change very, very quickly. This company, which I don't know too much about, but they're called Superpower, and it's saying they're looking to close the gap between the medicine for the 0.1% and everybody else, enabling every household in the nation to find a level of personalized care that has historically only been available to the wealthiest people. Do you guys know anything about Superpower? What are your thoughts about this story?
So I actually had lunch with Anthony Venari in Arlington a couple of weeks ago, and he was raving about this company. Anthony Venari is one of the co-founders of Fit Insider. They're advisors to this company. And he just really believed in what he did. And it's exactly what you just described, Matthew, in that when you look at the 0.1%, or even look at people like us, right? We are fortunate to be in an industry and surrounded by experts, get to have conversations like this, and we are in the know. What does the general population do? Like what are the things that they look at? What sources of information do they have? And typically it is their GP doctor who would probably not have a lot of knowledge of any of the topics that we spoke about today. It could be their friends and family who again might not have the knowledge here. So what they're trying to do is to make advanced testing more accessible, more affordable to the masses. Now, how they're going to do that, I have no idea. I have
Yeah.
no idea. They haven't laid out a plan. I know this is their vision. I think a lot of other companies have had this vision, but it comes down. I mean, we are all entrepreneurs on this, and we all know that it comes down to execution. But with $4 million, seems like a lot, but we all know that's not really that much when you're starting a company. It's going to go away quickly. And to $4 million in a healthcare system for a healthcare product, I think is very little. So I'd be curious to know. I mean, it seems like they have a good team in place. Again, I know people who are excited about it, but I'm excited to see what they come out with.
Yeah. I've looked into a few of these companies on a personal level. It's not cheap. Like, I
No.
mean, for yourself who knows what to look for, you're looking at 20, 30,000 a year for this custom approach. And it's almost like the gap just gets wider and wider versus being able to hit more people. And then to your point earlier, Mo, about, and I agree with you, when you say an uneducated consumer, it's what we mean is you didn't go to school for exercise science. We're not saying you're a dumb person, but I wonder if you guys go through this, like when you're at one of your kids' school events or sporting events, and you don't, the one time you don't want to be the fitness guy, but you just get blasted with questions, right? So I was at just a championship kind of party the other night, and I had to go through about a 20, 30-minute conversation where the person I was talking to was telling me that their son, who is 16 years old, high level, I think it was football player, wanted to start taking creatine, and the parents were saying, no, we're never going to let you take this. This is awful for you. It's going to make you stunt your growth. And pretty much they were
Mhm.
approaching creatine like it was steroids, right?
Right.
And I had to get into a delicate conversation being like, I started taking creatine at 16, and if your son's about to go play competitive football, I would highly recommend he probably does start taking this stuff. And it got to a place where I was going to introduce them to our nutritionist to explain how this is actually great for exactly where he is and what he's looking for right now. And it's not harmful. And I always walk it back to just the general public and the information they don't have access to, and how difficult sometimes it is to put these to kind of put these upper echelon ideas just to the general public that half the time is just trying to get off the couch and get moving.
I would agree with that too. I do have those conversations a lot, especially in the sports with sports teams. Right, my son's 14, and just like your kids and Matthew, your kids are super active as well, and it's these misconceptions that you find, or better yet, if you go to the doctor, right, who still look at things like BMI. We all know BMI is not a key metric, but yet here we are following it, and something like creatine. I'm really surprised by that, just because that's been around for about 3 decades, and creatine's found naturally in steak and other natural sources as well. But Brandon, we are at time, and we love to wrap up with a final thought. So we are so grateful for having you on the podcast. Any final thoughts on the topics that we spoke about this week?
No, what I will say is the next 10 years are going to be wild in our industry, right? It really is. I think, what we've seen over the past 5 years and everything that's happening right now, like think about this, guys, like we weren't talking about AI 18 months ago or GLP-1s 12 months ago. What's about to happen in our industry over the next 10 years is pretty exciting. I'm sure there'll be great versions of it and bad, like we always do it. That's how it's going to be. But I'm excited to see this 2.0 approach to health. Everything from hormone therapy to general wellness. I think we're on the right track, and the person that's able to curate it to speak to the everyday person the best is going to be the one with the opportunity for sure.
Matthew, how about you? Any final thoughts for this week's episode?
Yeah, in line with Brandon, really, I was thinking as we went through the conversation as from a business perspective. And it certainly seems, if you think about what Apple Health are doing, last week we had a section where we talked about some of the things that Apple are now doing with their new Apple Watch, consolidating a lot of data. And although I feel in certain cases it's ideal to specialize and go to someone that really knows what they're doing, for it also for the general population that as you said, don't have a degree in this, there's almost a need to be able to pull some of these key things together, whether it's considering GLP-1s or nutrition or fitness. There seems to be like an opportunity for some kind of affordable way where somebody can look at end to end exactly what they need. Whether that's possible to do it affordably is another question. But certainly being able to join the dots for people, so at least they're in a generally informed position, knowing that the people that are informed, there's no bias, and they're not making money from what they're shoving down your throat. It's just really good information that will hopefully sort of, give you some decent guidance on your overall health and well-being.
I agree. I think for me, this whole conversation episode had me going back to someone who we had on this show, Matthew, Joe DeSena, who's the founder of Spartan, was one of our first clients in 2012 with SweatWorks, and just been a mentor for me for over 10 years. He always kind of talked about being comfortable in the uncomfortable, right? In order to see progress, you have to do that. And Brandon, you kind of talked about children today and the world that they're in. You talked about phones and leaving them outside, being able to do this detox when you're at the gym. You talked about putting in the work, and people are constantly looking for the quick fix, whether they're looking to get the most likes on Instagram or TikTok, they're looking to GLP-1 for the quick weight loss fix. We've got to get back to fundamentals. And one of the key fundamental principles is you've got to put in the hard work, right? Whether it is being an entrepreneur or in your fitness and wellness journey. We as a community are here to do that. I don't think GLP-1 is the quick fix. I don't think AI is the quick fix for anything. Ultimately, it's going to come down to who's got the right strategy, who's willing to execute, and ultimately, who's willing to grind and put in the work. Because in order to see success, you have to do that.
Yeah, and the last thing I will say, I think, we sit on these podcasts and try to solve the world's problems, but the best thing we can do that do have the education, do have the knowledge, is just create little ripples in your community. I mean, like, who knows what GLP-1 will do in the world, but I can help someone understand it. And if like the fitness professionals could help their unit and their circle understand those little needs, I mean, that ripple effect could do a lot more than just these broad conversations.
Yeah, I'd agree. Well, Brandon, thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Lifts. That's it for this week. If you've enjoyed the episode or got anything out of it, then please help us to get this out to more people by sharing it or giving us a like or leaving some comments. Thanks very much. Look forward to speaking to you all next week.